Greetings, Commanders. Let's talk today about recent changes to weapons and shields. Those changes are very important and already are live in Beta 1.1. And for everyone, they will be live next Tuesday. So let's take a look at what those changes are. Let's start with dumbfire missiles. Dumbfire missile damage has not changed. Just shields now massively resist explosive damage, meaning that dumbfire missiles against shields are much weaker now. I will test dumbfire missiles against Anaconda shields somewhere in nearest future. Also, finally, there's an added penalty to damage against larger ships. As missiles are only class 1 and 2, then against large ships all missiles will have penalties, unless there will be large dumbfire missiles. Also, missiles have never dealt system damage. This is from developer post and forum. Still, dumbfire missiles do very significant damage to your hull. Only thing that has changed is how shields are holding against missiles now. Now let's talk about weapon overheating. From day one, David Braben told that he wants heat to be a significant factor in Elite. To make game interesting, developers just added significant heat increase in firing your weapons. The heat increases the moment you fire your weapons, so you have to keep an eye on your heat meter and weapon capacitors. I've seen Clipper with 2-beam lasers starting from 45% heat, firing 2-beam lasers, and building up heat from the very first moment he opens fire, reaching 100% of heat when weapon capacitors were almost drained, and then by keeping firing, heat just jumped over 130%. So you really must pay attention to your heat level and manage your weapon capacitor much more carefully, because if you are running very low on capacitor, you should probably stop shooting at all. But it really depends on what weapons you are using. That's why I want to wait for these changes to go live, as there will be still some tweaks, and I want to try the final version. Lasers did not undergo any change. The only thing that's changed, how they generate heat, and how the heat generated from weapons are related to weapon capacitors. So if capacitors can cool weapons effectively, meaning they are almost full, the heat will build up slower in your ship. But if capacitors are almost empty, heat levels will rise quickly. And now about shields. Any strike on shield will prevent regeneration for a few moments. They don't start to regenerate the moment they stop taking damage, so it's a small delay. But the biggest changes are to shield cell banks. There's now a 5-second delay, used to be 1. And during those 5 seconds the heat will be generated. So you probably will want to stop firing while you are recharging your shield cell banks. And also the big change is about energy requirement. Now shield cell banks require some serious power from power plant to be active. But if we are considering that we are using only one at a time, so most likely we already have one shield cell bank and all others turned off on the right user interface panel modules. And just by switching one by one back, or by setting right priorities, we will have only one, always active. You can always turn off any module, so if you have 5 shield cell banks, you can always disable 4 of them. Are those changes a good thing? Well, from the big picture, those changes do not matter, because we all will have to deal with those. It's just another thing to manage. I would say that those changes are good. Now we will have to look more carefully what weapons we have on our ships. Now we will have to look more carefully on our heat level during the combat. Those 5 seconds while shield cell banks are charging, we will most likely stop shooting. Also, heat sinks will become much more important. So if you have any free utility mount, you should probably just buy heat sink. You just can't go wrong with them now. That's all for this DevTracker.